Trump, China, and trade, who blinks first? Neither President Trump nor Chinese President Xi Jinping are showing any sign they'll cave in the escalating trade dispute between the world's two most important economics, portending a standoff that could last months or even years. Buoyed by the strong U.S. economy, Trump is feeling little pressure to strike a quick deal with Beijing, and people close to the White House say he is prepared to hold out for the best possible deal. President. Many trade experts agree that China has more to lose from a prolonged trade war with the U.S. But Xi is seen by some as playing a weakened hand due to pressure from hardliners in Beijing, who do not want to accept an agreement they believe would force their country to lose face. The two leaders plan to meet at the Group of 20 summit next month in Osaka, Japan, which current and former Trump administration officials have billed as another chance to strike a deal. Trump on Friday was non-committal about the prospects for an agreement, but argued he remains in a stronger position than Xi. War. Some observers say the rising tariffs could help the two leaders broker a deal in Japan, but others say the fundamental problems in the trading relationship point to a long fight. After trade talks between the two nations ended last Friday, Trump boosted tariffs on $200 billion in Chinese goods to 25% and began the process of imposing tariffs on an additional $325 billion, which would hit almost all imports from China, though he has not said whether he will follow through. China responded by announcing it will raise tariffs on $60 billion in U.S. goods to as high as 25% beginning June 1, which could hurt farmers and small manufacturers in states like Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin that are critical to Trump's re-election chances in 2020. Business groups on K Street are eager to see a resolution, and there is concern the two sides have not scheduled talks. If the trade war leads to a downward spiral for the U.S. economy, it could create an opening for a deal. But Trump's decision, U.S. unemployment has remained below 4%, gross domestic has grown by more than 3%, and one showed consumer confidence at a 15-year high, despite the ongoing trade tensions. This has given Trump's efforts to clear the deck of other trade disputes could increase pressure on Beijing. Pettis said China must transform its economy to reduce reliance on debt, and the trade dispute with the U.S. has complicated those efforts. The longer the stand, that Trump administration officials expressed frustration that such conditions make it difficult to negotiate with their Chinese counterparts. A deputies-level meeting in February grew contentious when U.S. negotiators believed Chinese emissaries were pulling back on prior commitments to address core issues, such as intellectual property theft and forced transfers of technology. U.S. Trade Representative Robert Lighthizer entered the room and stated in an extremely. The talks eventually got back on track, and Trump later announced he would delay a self-imposed deadline to raise tariffs, citing progress in the talks. But a similar reverse, the dynamic has given administration officials hope a deal could eventually be reached, but Williams said it is critical for Washington to convince Beijing it is not somehow. Trump has also dealt with divisions within the White House on how best to approach negotiations with China. Some advisors, such as Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin, are more cognizant of how deeply entangled the two sides are economically as negotiations play out. The two countries, another group of aides, such as trade advisor Peter Navarro and former White House chief strategist Stephen Bannon, have voiced more hawkish views of China, maintaining the country is a strategic threat that must be dealt with aggressively. He pointed to Trump's recent rhetoric encouraging China-based companies to relocate production to Vietnam or non-tariffed countries, as well as an executive order Trump signed this week paving the way to block foreign tech companies such as Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei from doing business in the U.S. if they are deemed a national security threat by the Commerce Department. Those changes could open the door to further decoupling of the world's two largest economies, a goal of some China hawks but an outcome the business community says would be damaging to both. Despite those factors, Trump has cited what he says is his close personal relationship with Xi as reason for optimism a deal will ultimately get done. The White House said a possible G20 meeting is still being finalized, but the sit-down will test the extent of the two leaders' friendship and Trump's deal-making abilities.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park pot.